Alright guys, we're going to try it. This is a by request video. A couple guys have asked about how I do the Pitot airspeed measurements. So what I did is I took this piece of 289 head I was doing for DV before I ruined it. You can see how tight it is on the short side. So I did a cutaway on it. I did do a 2-second remove the rust off of it with one hand because it's such a strange shape. It was tough to get in the vise. But in any case, all right, this is my Pitot. It's had a rough life. It's been caught on a couple things. It's been bent a little bit, but it still works. Now, what we're going to go over is I'm going to show this in a couple different dimensions. Oh, I should say different angles, because it's not the easiest concept in the world, okay? We're going to do the short side radius first. So you bring the Pitot in, right? And you stick to this side, right? This is going to be the center of the cylinder side, because our exhaust port is on the other side, right? There we are in the screen. You bring the Pitot in. You want this part of the Pitot to be parallel with the floor until you get to the apex, okay? And what you'll notice is as you're coming in, your airspeeds will change. Whether they start really fast at the pinch, depending upon how tight the pinch is, and then the speed would go down, and then as soon as you get to the apex of your short side, the airspeed usually peaks, okay? So it'll be, let's say it'll be fast, it'll slow down a little bit, and it'll gradually go up until it goes over the edge, and sometimes, depending upon the layback, it'll go down in speed or it'll go up in speed. You really don't want to get too far past the apex, though, to get your speed. What I usually do is right about the apex, it's going to get the highest speed, and that's going to be my speed for that spot. And then I do the same thing for the center of the short side radius, and I do the exact same thing on the cylinder wall side. Okay, let's see. Let's use this exact same cutaway and do the same thing for the pinch, okay? You only have half a head, but I think I'll do this on the DV cutaway as well. Okay, when you're measuring the floor of your pinch, it's the same idea. You'll get the speed right here, right off your radius, and then at the minimum cross section of the pinch, the airspeed will be the highest, okay? Now, usually you can see where the pinch is, right? And if we take a look at DV's chunk right here, right? You can see by this curve here, this section right here is going to be our minimum, right? So you go in right to where that minimum is, and you should get your number. But what is kind of fun is to go do a little bit of an arc past it. And what's really interesting is your airspeeds on this wall. Whoa! I have seen well over 400 on the arc here. Okay? So let's go back to the head we were on. So when I do my Pitot floor, I usually flip it this way to get the center. Really doesn't make a difference whether you do it center this way or the center this way. It will change your flow through the port a little bit. Will it be that detrimental? No. One problem with a Pitot is it changes the airflow just by it being there. So take that into consideration, okay? And as far as your roof, this is what it should look like. Right about here, where it gets its minimum cross section, should be your highest airspeed for your pinch, and you can record all of those. Now, I think you guys can see. Let's see if we can do the roof. Now, the roof is kind of interesting, right? You want the Pitot to lay right against the roof. You bring it right to the, see how it goes down on that bowl? You bring it right to that point, and then you back up just a little bit, and that's it. That's where you are. That's how I do it. I'm sure there's somebody somewhere that'll say, oh, Charlie, you're doing it wrong. Well, show me a better way to do it. Now you have to remember, this is not a perfect port by any stretch of the imagination. You can see I was fiddling with almost an LS style guide there to aim the flow, basically the same way I do it now with the cylinder heads, right by the plug. This was actually turning out really nice before I ruined it. And I do the exact same thing on this side. Right, you hit the back of the bowl, and you just back it up a little bit, and there it is. That's going to be that would be your cylinder wall side roof. Okay? I don't know if you got to see that. Let me just do that one again quick. Sorry, guys. Right. On this side, bring it right to the back of the bowl and just pull it off the back of the bowl a little bit, and you're good. Okay, let's see if we can do the exact same thing on DV's chunk. Don't know how well this is going to work, but I'll give it a shot. Worst case scenario, it's a terrible video. Let's put a little extra light on it. Not sure if that helps. Let's just put a little spacer under it to tilt it up a bit. I don't know. I don't know if you guys can see anything on that at all. Okay, I think we're running. I hope we're running. Okay. I think you guys can see that now. Okay. And I got to do this in front of the camera, so try to keep my gorilla arms out of the way, right? I really can't see the screen, so I'll just go for it. Okay. You start at the very edge of the port. You bring it in right to the minimum size. The speed should be maxed out. And you can go past it. It should start to slow down a little bit. If you really want to be fancy, you can graph a port from its opening all the way down the short side right to the apex, and you can start getting a graph of the airspeeds throughout the entire port, which actually gives you a lot of information. Okay? So, bottom of the port, center of the port, roof of the port. That's just the pinch itself. Okay, when I do the short side, I slide it in, and I like to keep it right at the bottom of that curve. I don't like it all the way up the curve. I like it right here. And I follow that right around, and I get my number. I do the exact same thing on the straight wall. Sorry if I'm in your way, guys. Okay, and I get my airspeed this way. Flip it over, bring it right to the back of the bowl, back it out just a touch, and then center of the cylinder, right to the back of the bowl, back it out a touch. Those are what I use on my flow sheets for airspeeds. I'm sure there are other guys that do it differently, that get maybe even way more. I don't know. Let's take a look at the exhaust, and I'll show you how I do it on the exhaust. Let me get ready. Okay, you know what I just reminded myself of? My very first YouTube video was on Pitot speeds. It is absolutely an atrocious video. I mean, worse than most of my stuff. But it was a start. I should explain that this is the 180 degree Pitot, okay? I know I've discussed in the past how it works, right? It has a small hole here, and you probably can't see it, but it has a bunch of tiny holes around there, and it's able to get the differential pressure through it and measure the airspeed according to that. They do the same thing on aircraft to get airspeeds when you're flying. All right, this is your 180. This is what you're going to do all of your intake work with. This is just straight. This is what you're going to do your exhaust work with. Okay? Now, when I do my exhaust, the way I have the sheet laid out is I took... Yeah, let's just... I think you guys can see that. I took the exhaust and I split it into 3 sections, right? Top, middle, and bottom. And basically what I do is I go right in the corner, get the top, middle, bottom. Do the same thing in the center of the port. It's very difficult to hold it. You have to remember you got sometimes air going 350 feet per second, so you really kind of have to hold it in place in the center. And the rest of it you get to lean, right? Bottom, center, top. That's one way to do it. Now, if you really want to be nuts, what I do is I reverse it on the bench, and then I can go deep inside the port to take a bunch of measurements. I usually don't have to do that to get to science out a port the way to make it work really well. And on the cutaway, let's move the cutaway up closer. Okay, you should be able to see that. Okay. Top, middle, bottom. I like to just have the tip inside the edge of the port so it has something to lean against. That's how I do it. Now, if you really wanted to get interesting, right, you can take this and you can graph your airspeeds throughout the whole port. And that's very interesting to do. If you have a port that's really giving you a hard time and you can't get the flow out of it that you should for the size port, do that. Okay? Same thing on the floor. Graph your speed all the way down. Graph your speed in the center all the way down. It'll show you a lot. And of course you can do that all through the port. Same thing here, right? You can show it all the way in, throughout the entire port. So I've been known to actually mount them on the bench so it's blowing air out, which you have to be careful of because if there's any dirt or anything there, it will blow right into your eye at a very high velocity. Just saying. And what else do I need to include for some Pitot airspeed measurements on intake and exhaust ports? I'm sure I forgot something, but I was asked by my 2 brothers in Mississippi. They have their SF. I think they got an SF 750. They got it running today. They were thrilled, and they asked me how to do Pitots. I go, you know what? You're not the only people that asked me about doing Pitots. So I've got that, and I could show you. I also got 2 different boxes of intake valves for the EQ heads. The Aussie heads valves came, and the Chinese heads from the Chinese heads that are going to Australia. One got SI valves, the other one got Hughes valves. I think we'll probably do a little video on just taking a look at the different intakes, and we'll compare them. I have the boxes marked. Whose valves are whose. I have to keep things straight like that. All right, guys. I think that's probably enough for today. Thanks for hanging out. Have a good night.